Good evening and welcome to Old Romans Unscripted. At the moment, it's just me, myself, and I. I had two newbie guests, and it may be that one of them has succumbed to the migraine that they thought was coming on them this afternoon, and the other perhaps has not been able to work out how to enter the studio. So, for the meantime, it's just me, and this is then, of course, live and completely unscripted. So we'll just go along and see if they come along. In the meantime, of course, there are various things of interest that have gone on this week in the world of ecclesiology, in ecclesiastical current affairs. Not least of all, the sudden and dramatic closure of a seminary in Argentina over communion in the hand. The ordinary, the bishop, had, with, I think, COVID instructions, requested that communion only be administered to the faithful in the hand, and particularly to the seminarians, but the particular diocese of San Rafael in Argentina is noted for its traditionalism and, well, for its preference for traditional methods. And so the rector of the seminary refused to comply. He was then summarily dismissed by the bishop. So just bear that in mind. So he was, the rector of the seminary was summarily dismissed by the diocesan bishop for refusing to communicate the seminarians only with the Eucharist in the hand. He was dismissed, and then subsequently it was discovered that all the other professors, all the other priests who ministered to the seminary likewise would not comply with this request of the bishop. So he closed the seminary down, and this received apparently the backing of the Vatican. So again, let me just emphasize that point. The seminary was closed down by the diocesan bishop because the priests refused to only give communion in the hand. That just is incredible. Now, of course, this has then provoked, obviously, responses, not only, obviously, from the diocese itself, from both the seminarians and the faithful, and, of course, other clergy, but also, too, from one Archbishop Vigano, who, of course, has become something of a crusader commentator on issues within the contemporary Roman Communion. And he actually wrote a letter to the Bishop of San Rafael saying, this is crazy, basically, what you're doing. You've closed down a seminary because you insist on communion only be given in the hand, even though that goes directly against a directive from the Sacred Congregation of Rites issued by the Vatican. I think it was in 2005, Redemptione Sacramentum, which says that the faithful are completely within their right to receive communion any which way they please, but particularly communion on the tongue. And then Vigano goes on to castigate him, but also to point out the hypocrisy of the contemporary hierarchy in using canon law. And Vigano uses as an example that of another bishop, the Bishop of Basel in Switzerland, where, again, this week it has been discovered a private handbag video recording was taken of a liturgy in one of the churches in Basel, and there was a woman, Eucharistic minister, wearing, it seems, Eucharistic vestments and conducting what ostensibly should be a Holy Communion service, which, of course, is not a mass, is not... it's just the liturgy of the word and then the administration of Holy Communion. But she was wearing vestments and essentially conducting a mass, simulating mass, even going so far as to have an offertory, to sing the preface before the canon, and then simply omitted the canon. So she didn't pretend to consecrate the Eucharist. She sang the preface, they sang the Sanctus, then she went to the tabernacle and then administered Holy Communion. And Archbishop Vigano is pointing out that, you know, here you have a clear case of somebody breaking the rules, and nothing is being done by the bishop, and nothing is being said by the Vatican. But of this seminary, where the seminarians would prefer, out of veneration to the Blessed Sacrament, to the presence of Christ in the Blessed Sacrament, they would prefer to receive the sacrament on the tongue, which, as various doctors in other dioceses have pointed out, is just as safe, if not safer, than receiving the sacrament in the hand. For this, a seminary has been closed. And these are the crazy times in which we live, brothers and sisters. These are crazy times indeed. Now, as if that wasn't enough for news this week, then came on Thursday, was it Thursday or Friday? But the news that Father Joseph Pfeiffer, of some notoriety, a priest of the SSPX resistance, was consecrated bishop. He's been running a seminary. I can see one of my guests has arrived, so I will bring him on in just a moment. So Joseph Pfeiffer, a priest of the Society, a former priest, I suppose, of the Society of St. Pius X. He's part of what they call the resistance, a split from the society, who has been running a seminary in Kentucky, has been consecrated a bishop, but not by Bishop Williamson, who also left the society, and not by one of the three bishops that Bishop Williamson has since consecrated, but instead Father Pfeiffer chose to be consecrated by a Feeneyite sedevacantist. A Feeneyite sedevacantist. Feeniyites, by the way, if you're not familiar with that term, they deny baptism of desire and baptism by blood, which means if somebody, it means they don't accept any kind of baptism, don't recognize any kind of baptism other than by water and the Spirit. That may at first sound a bit strange, or that may sound a bit actually orthodox. But the point is, the baptism of desire, the baptism of martyr, or baptism by blood, is an accommodation that the Church has long since recognized for those souls who may have been martyred for the faith, or who may have died prematurely, but who, to all intents and purposes, were catechumen and were expecting to receive the sacrament of baptism. So anyway, this has all happened this week. So a seminary is closed down because the bishop insists that they give communion only in the hand and not on the tongue. The seminarians and the priests refuse to have communion in the hand, so they've been closed down. A woman in Switzerland is simulating offering mass and has received no rebuke whatsoever. And then in the resistance of the movement of traditional Roman Catholicism, Joseph Pfeiffer has been consecrated by a Feeneyite sedevacantist bishop. So there's a lot there to talk about. So I'm going to bring on my guest for this episode of Unscripted, who comes to us from Detroit. So bear with me 1 second as I bring Brother Stanislaus on screen. There we are, Brother Stanislaus.
Hello, Excellency. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but
that's all right. That's fine. That's fine. I'm glad you managed to sort them out. So I don't know how much of were you able to hear any of that? I kind of went over it twice just to make sure that you could.
Okay. No, I did. I'm hearing some familiar names, and I was not aware of the news of. I don't know how recent the news is of the consecration. Okay. This is Joseph Pfeiffer,
the one and only,
the theologian.
Oh no! This is Joseph Pfeiffer of the Pfeiffer brothers in the SSPX.
Okay, I mean it sounds a familiar name, but you're probably familiar with the theologian as well of the same name.
Yeah.
Which would be really, really, really surprising.
Yeah, that would be very surprising. That would be very surprising. No, so the news is with reference to formerly Father Joseph Pfeiffer of the SSPX Marian Corps Resistance in Kansas, who has been consecrated by one set of vacantist, Bishop Neil Webster.
Okay.
Which is an interesting development. It's not a complete surprise. Those of us who are familiar with the fringes of the, shall we say, of the traditional Catholic movement have been watching for some time Father Pfeiffer's efforts to secure the services of a bishop for his seminarians. And I think, although that said, I think it is a surprise that he went or agreed or sought to be consecrated by a Feniite sedevacantist.
Yeah. That sounds. I kind of heard of this place in Kentucky. I have not heard the best reports about the place. I've never been there. I always question when someone who feels like they're called to a particular mission. I question when they move into these sort of areas where they're seeking out something that, oh my goodness, the type of discernment that has to go on with that. One of the things our founder, St. Stanislaus, and one of the reasons I ended up finding the old Romans here in the United States was because he always insisted that everything we do, everything he did, always be with the church. And not, I think he would say, he's 17th century, but I think he would say, or at least agree, that not to go and find and make up your own, but to seek the discernment and the will of the church. And if you do that, then, the churches, I think any sort of movement like this, and from my own experience, I think the church is always going to object. There's going to be that sense, but then you have to let her, I think, have her say. And so when something like this happens, where a priest, becomes, or whether he sought it out, or, but what we do know is that he was seeking out more of an influence at the seminary. And so now he's become that influence, because now, at least if it's valid, as a consecrated bishop, he can do a lot, both good and bad.
Yes, indeed. I mean, this is always the problem with bishops.
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
that they can be both incredibly useful and good, or they can be incredibly destructive and bad. And I mean, and this is really, in many ways, I suppose this is the theme of our news items this week. That we have the Argentinian bishop who closes down a seminary simply because he can't have his own way about the way in which people receive Holy Communion. And then in Switzerland, you have another bishop who says nothing and does nothing about a woman dressing up as a priest and simulating the mass. And I mean, this is crazy. This is the level of chaos that is pervading the church today.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know you see it there in the UK, and we see it here. Hearing about this woman, whatever she did, and her bishop allowing it. Obviously, when I hear things like that now, I'm not surprised, like you. All the things that are happening, and it's happening at least it seems to me, it's happening so fast. Like you said, every day, something else, to the point of it's almost, I'm not sure what the phenomenon is called, but that when a wheel or a fan or something with blades, as it's spinning slowly, you can still see the different blades, you can still tell what's going on. But as it goes faster and faster and faster, all of a sudden you're looking right through it. And it doesn't even look like there's any blades there at all, but lots is going on. And I feel like that's the time we're living in. It seems. I know I've read recent articles about, sort of, well, every generation has felt this, or there have been other times in the church where this has happened or this has happened. And I get it. I see. I know, when you have 2,000 years of history, you're going to see a lot of things and see a lot of repeating of things. But this is different. I mean, of course, I haven't been around in the other times, but it seems different to me from what I read about, from reading history, church history, even spirituality, and the history of the great saints and their times when they wrote about their own great arguments in their time. It does seem different, and I'm not alone in thinking this. There's great churchmen who are saying the same thing. Rather than me and my little cavern here at the moment, which I'm happy to be able to broadcast from now that we've got it cleaned up a bit. Yeah. Yeah,
that's great news. Now, I suppose just for the benefit, really, of the viewers, because this is your first time on Old Romans Unscripted. So just explain to us where you are right now.
Okay. Well, I'm in Detroit, Michigan. This is about my 7th year here in ministry. The last 6 spending my time at Assumption Grotto, a great traditional parish that has never stopped saying the traditional mass. It was founded by the Redemptorists in the early 1800s, so it's been there a long time. The current mission that I'm on is that I found an abandoned parish and residence. If you know any of the history of Detroit, you know that we have a lot of that. And this one, though, was worth going in and saving. And we have been doing a lot of work, meaning a lot of benefactors that come along. Some of the men were here this week, just cleaning out. And up to this point, we have probably taken out about 25 tons of debris, and that would be debris from vandals, from just the rotting of the floors or carpets, things like that. And so now I'm in the actual church. It was founded in 1917 as the Hungarian Byzantine Rite. They eventually became Roman Catholic and moved down the street, and they have a beautiful parish, Holy Cross parish down the street run by Franciscans, and the fathers have been very welcoming to me. This is a, let's see, this neighborhood used to be called Delray. I think it's still referred to as Delray, and it's pretty bad. So the project and the ministry here is more than just the parish, but also the neighborhood.
I've got here a little bit of video to share. So this will just give you an idea. You'll recognise, hopefully, from the ceiling that you can see behind Brother Stanislaus now, and this short video will give you another perspective of the location he's in. So let's just watch this for a minute.
If you can see there, look at this beautiful. Okay, that's the emblem. I'm scrolling down. You should be seeing St. John the Baptist. God our Father there, and isn't that something? That's what I mean. For this alone, and then I'll just scroll over. You can see the apostles on the side. I believe St. Elizabeth of Hungary. You can just see that it's so salvageable and so close to being destroyed, like so many other places in this archdiocese. This is the entryway, so the wonderful stairs we'll fix. We've got a few more stained glass. Someone did a good job. This is the stained glass from the front, but I believe the stained glass is still there on the other side. And our goal is to return this to the truth and beauty and goodness of the holy sacrifice of the Mass being done every day. Prayers of this hermitage, all our prayers that we do all day long, praying for the dead, praying for your intentions, praying for the world.
There we are. So you can see something there of the task before Brother Stanislaus. Are you? You're not undaunted by the prospect at all, are you?
Well, no. I mean, I'm not sure where that comes from, except it's just being rooted in a strict prayer life and the sacraments, and just relying on our Lord over and over and over again. He's reminding me just to trust in Him, not just by anecdotal evidence, but always in prayer, to trust in Him. And as I teach people, Jesus, I trust in you, at least in English, or in the original Polish, Jezu ufam Tobie. In Polish, 3 short words, in English, 5 short words. But at least for me, it's some of the hardest work to trust in Him continually.
Always. And that really is, the knack to living the Christian faith is to trust, is to trust in God, is to trust in the promises of Christ, no matter what happens. It's the thing that everybody struggles with. As a part of the expression of our pride, as a part of the part of the problem about our pride and our ego is, we try to do so much by ourselves. We try to do everything from our own strength. And yet, the clear message of the gospel and of the apostles, all of them, is that actually it's when you give up trying to do things of your own strength and rely on God and trust in Him that suddenly all things become possible that previously you were thought impossible. It's God always calls the humble and the meek and exalts them. We see this, with somebody like St. John the Baptist. We see this with somebody like the Blessed Virgin. We see this with our Lord Himself, born in a stable. We see this with the fishermen that were called to be apostles and who spread the gospel around the then known world. It's it's all about trusting in God. When we let go and allow ourselves to trust in Him, suddenly all things become possible.
Yes, yes. And I can't say that that's my precise, what's where I am. I wish I was, because I think I've had moments like that, and that's the freedom and the peace that comes with that is amazing. But like so many in the world, especially the poor, life can be very difficult. Something's always happening, the poor, like now, we are experiencing some weather here in the United States, that if you are of good means, this is probably not really going to affect you. But if you take the bus, if you have a job you have to get to every day, maybe you walk or a bike or, whatever, it's, if I could say so, my old father, may he rest in peace, used to say, being poor is hell. And I remember looking up at him as a kid and thinking, I don't know what that means. Because, as children, we don't really know that we don't, are without, in the sense. But it is. And so trusting, and that I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, in that as a living a hermit lifestyle, as a monk, as a religious, that the prayer that happens every day is precisely this. To Lord, help me to love you more, and to trust you more, and to receive you more, and to believe in you more. And that's the work. It's great work. And then, we're also working on, our prayers for the world and for people. And, it's a job, to do this. And so on top of that, that's why I think I have met such holy people who are really just poor and struggle in life. But boy, I don't know how they do it. Because I'm still kind of on your initial question of whether I see, whether this is daunting for me. And I really just have to open my door and look at the poor that I'm surrounded by and think, oh my goodness, what God has given to me, this building, the residence. Now, someone may say, well, there's no electricity, there's no water, what is really there? But, there's the old movie of St. Francis, Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon.
Oh yeah.
And it's not a great one, but there's a scene in there where he finds what he thinks he's going to rebuild, and the church is destroyed. There's just rocks everywhere. And I forget in this scene, I'm not sure if it was St. Clair or whoever comes to say, what are you doing? And he was just, to him, everyone's looking at him going, what are you talking about, rebuilding this church? This is impossible. And he was just taking boulder by boulder and saying, oh, no. And as he was talking, he's working, And in fact, I was reminded of this week, someone asked me, I said, ora et labora.
Yeah.
Pray and work. Prayer and work. And this is what we do. This is what's happening. Other things happen during the day, of course. Sometimes nothing happens. But that's really what it is for me. I am so amazed at what God has done for me that how can I not help but answer, no matter how heavy the lifting might be. And what Our Lady has taught me is one thing at a time. That's all I can do. And so that's what we're doing. And so it's not really a being, I do look around and there is a lot to do, but it's really just simply relying on, that I guess there's also another great movie of St. Teresa of Avila. It was made in Spanish. It's a very, very good series. And in there, she kind of, because, St. Teresa had a reputation for being tough, tough woman. You can't do what she did. And, she's praying and she said, how can you treat your friends this way? How can you And I learned in reading about her that to be important, the importance in prayer is honesty, because God already knows. You know,
Exactly.
so if I'm angry, because I told people I can't get angry, especially if things are, it's a fault. I realize it. It's a shortcoming. However, in my love for God, in my understanding of His love for me, I look at Him, and I might be a little angry, but it doesn't last long. But I do approach Him honestly in that way, as I do with trust, as I do with all of this that's going on. So that's really just maybe a broken man's way of making his way across the spiritual spectrum.
Well, I think the other important thing that we often don't, that we often forget, is that it's not so much that you complete or you finish, but that you strive and that you try. We both in the spiritual sense in this life, our Lord, commands us, be perfect as your Heavenly Father is perfect. We know that none of us are ever going to attain to that perfection in this life. But we can strive and we can try. And when we come before the throne of grace, when we come before God the Father, it won't matter to Him that we failed. It won't matter to Him that we didn't complete this or that task or mission. What will matter is whether our heart was in it, whether we were striving and with all our might, and whether we were doing so moved by and in love of and for Him. That's ultimately what matters.
It is, and it reminds me of another story. Saint Maria Faustina Kowalska, the Most Blessed Sacrament, who received the private revelation of the Divine Mercy message, and she was receiving these images. Our Lord was coming to her, and so He's giving her this, this image and the paint it, and I want you to have holy cards made, and I want people to trust in my mercy, and this on and on. So she's doing all she can. She's a simple Polish nun with a junior high education, as we would understand, middle school education. And so she's getting frustrated because everybody's saying no and no one's helping her. So she's in prayer and our Lord comes to her and she's ready. And she says, you have given me all this work. You've told me all these things to do, but no one's helping me. Everybody's saying no. And He says, you be obedient. That's what I'm looking for. Be obedient, do the job. Let me take care of the rest. And I think that for so many of us, like you were saying, we, especially those who are a little bit bullheaded like myself, we want to do it ourselves. We see a project at hand, especially those that, I'm 54 now, so I can't do what I used to. But, I remember when I was 34. And this project now, I'd be tackling all kinds of things. But, that wasn't the time. And as you were saying, that I think that, part of I think what you were saying and what it leads to is the love, the trust, the belief, what I have always taught the men that I've worked with is most people don't know how to receive. They don't know how to open up their hearts to receive the wonderful graces that are available to each and every one of us at each and every moment of each and every day. They just don't. And what priest do you hear talking about that? I don't hear anybody myself. Not on this side of the pond, as they say. I don't hear anybody because I was at Holy Mass this morning, and you might know that I have to go where I can. It's not the best, but and I was watching, and I'm thinking, my goodness, does this priest even really get? He was just ordained, and I'm listening to his homily. I'm watching him, and I'm very nice guy. I think I've kind of run into him over the last couple of years, and I realized, I thought, what bad formation, because you might as well have a robot up there. Not that you have to be animated or anything like that. I just didn't see love. What I saw was a willingness to talk about what I was taught in seminary. And then they get up there and everyone's kind of falling asleep, and then they go back to the altar, and then I'm thinking, is this mass even valid? I getting a little frustrated, with all of this.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's yeah. Yeah. I mean, and again, such is the state of the church at the present time. I mean, in all sorts of ways, and and it doesn't make me popular, as you can imagine, with some people, but sometimes I do look at other clergy, and I do wonder what is their motivation, what is their inspiration, what compels them. I see so many clergy who waste opportunities, who don't seek opportunities, who are unable to recognize opportunities. So many who are, frankly lazy. So many who take for granted. I mean, these are the professional clericalists. Those who take for granted their expenses, who take for granted their residencies, who take for granted their sort of social status. And again, it does it does make you wonder, why they're there, and it does explain in many ways, the situation that is the church today. I mean, and this is aside from some of the stuff they try and some of the stuff they preach, some of the stuff they teach, and as you say, I look at them sometimes and I think, well, where's the love? Where's the sacrifice? Where's the sacrifice? What are you sacrificing? Now, of course, as you know, you spend any time with clergy, and within a few moments they'll start sharing their complaints with you. Well, I can't do this and I can't do that, and I haven't got this and I haven't got that, and so on and so forth. Instead of spending their energy and their focus and their time on trying to appreciate what they have got, and trying to realize, as a catchphrase of mine, but God's will in the present moment. It's something that so many Christians fail to do, is realize and focus upon God's will in the present moment. We all tend to go on about the past, or we all tend to dream about the future, but meanwhile the present is passing us by, and I just there's so many. I sound like a grumpy old man, but
I think we tend to eventually get there, to sound like grumpy old men, but I think that there's a way, or at least I think that, at least for me, I try to find a way to put that in something that's productive. And I think just right now, sometimes that production looks like complaining, but someone has to say something. It was this all started, I believe, God knows exactly when it did, but I remember when how many months ago now, 8 months ago, with the coronavirus, and the church is closing. When I read, I remember looking at the articles and watching and saying, the Pope closed the churches in Rome? Yeah, because that was to me the day before, the hour before, I was saying impossible. It'll never happen. There may be restrictions, but the churches will remain open. Now, of course, he reverted, it was only for a day, but I believe that was a sort of trigger for the something demonic by him doing that.
But this has been a phenomena of the pandemic globally. Churches closing. And what's been interesting, for me again to look, to observe, certainly ecumenical colleagues, and initially everybody seemed quite happy to just close. It was like, oh, okay, well, we've got a free holiday. And then gradually the notion of I suppose we could harness information technology and broadcast services or masses or whatever. Now, what got me, what particularly got me about all that is that I've been doing this broadcasting now for 12 years and broadcasting the Mass for 12 years. And initially, we started it as a particular ministry for those who were housebound. Mm-hmm. And I remember sort of 2 or 3 weeks into the lockdown here, reading, some clergy babble on social media, and somebody saying, yeah, I don't know why we haven't done this before for the housebound. And I was thinking, well, yeah, duh. It's and suddenly all these clergy and churchy people were getting excited about broadcasting and suddenly realizing that it was so easy to do with their mobile phones and so on and so forth. And I thought, but we've had this technology for ages. And then what intrigued me and frustrated me was then to hear that some clergy were then wanting to record. So rather than go live, they wanted only to post recordings. Well, you see, in my head, I'm thinking, well, okay, but what's the point in that? If the idea of broadcasting is to enable worship, why share a recording? Why share a recording? Because that's just people spectating what you've already done. Mm-hmm. They can't join in with your prayers because you've already said them. You've been and gone. So where's the sense of spiritual communion and fellowship with that? And then now here in the UK, there's been a kind of a gradual sort of opening up again. And then I find it really interesting that all of a sudden they're all giving up on the broadcasting, and they're all saying, "Oh, now we can have 6 people in the building. There's no need for us to broadcast anymore." And I just think I don't understand it. I don't understand what their mentality is. Where's their thinking? Just because you can have 6 people live, or a dozen more perhaps in a building. What about everybody else who can't be there? And and by the way, guys, can I remind you of that comment that one of you made about 2 or 3 months ago that said, "Why did we never do this earlier or sooner for the housebound?" But it's kind of where is the mentality coming from? You see, for me, daily mass is a given, de rigueur. As a priest, that is my duty and my joy, and a great privilege to be able to offer the holy sacrifice of the Mass day by day. I also recognize that for the faithful, it's also a great comfort and consolation for them to know that the holy sacrifice of the Mass is being offered for their intentions, that their prayers are being joined by their priest to the offering of Christ in his love for us to God the Father, and his intercessory role, as well as in his sacrificial role. And so, the the ability 12 years ago to be able to share my daily mass with anybody who could find the stream. This was just sort of natural for me. This was kind of, well, this is brilliant. So not only can people come if they want to, but they can also find it on stream, and they can watch it in all sorts of circumstances and participate in ways that otherwise they wouldn't be able to. And particularly, one of the things I did almost on the off was to, after the HAR news, was to maintain holding the host and leading a prayer of spiritual communion, so that all those watching could make an act of spiritual communion, could see the host while they're making their act of spiritual communion, and this is as good as it can get, if you can't get to mass. And that has been the motivation for me all the way through these past 12 years, and to the point that sometimes it's not possible to broadcast mass for whatever reasons. Maybe the internet's gone, or there is no internet where I am, or whatever is not feasible. And I feel as guilty now about that, even though I'm still offering the mass, as I sometimes feel when I'm actually physically unable to offer mass. Because of this sense of wanting as a priest to be able to facilitate people to worship God. And, there is no greater act of worship than that which is offered by Christ himself in sacrificial love on Calvary. And that's what the Mass is. There is no equivalent on earth. There is no earthly worship comparable to that holy sacrifice of Calvary that is the Mass. No other form of worship comes near. And so I feel a great duty to be able to facilitate participation in that worship. As much as I'm able to. And I don't understand other clergy who don't have the same mentality, who don't share the same sense of, of obligation even. I mean, the number of times when I've been abroad and, I've sought out the local church and, want to arrange to say my mass. I don't have to say mass in a church. I can say mass anywhere. I know that. But I always think, it's preferable to offer mass in a church. And the number of times that clergy have looked at me strange, as you're on holiday, but you want to offer mass. Yeah. Well, there's nobody else with you, but just you. Looking at me strange, and I think, well, why are you looking at me strange? I mean, surely this is what you do, isn't it? Surely, don't you want to offer mass every day because you're able to? Don't you feel a sense of duty and obligation to do so? And yet, what I find in all over Europe is that even if a church has a priest, there's no guarantee that there's a daily mass.
That's right.
No guarantee that there's a daily mass. And I just don't understand that mentality at all.
I never have either, and I always thought, well, why not just open the door? If you're saying Holy Mass, it's so hard sometimes to find daily Mass here in the United States. It's almost impossible to find Saturday daily Mass. Because why? Because they're going to say a vigil Mass. They don't want to say early morning Mass. And this COVID thing, when we first reopened, and I was so excited to go back, and I went back, and I remember thinking about the priest, and I couldn't understand why, he came out and explaining he was only going to do Holy Mass on Wednesdays and on the weekend, once on the weekend. And then I overheard him, sure enough, say something to someone in the sacristy, well, they don't have an obligation to celebrate Holy Mass, to offer the Holy Sacrifice every day. And of course, that's true. But like you said, why don't you want to? And all the answer, at least from my perspective, from my experience, all the questions you ask about why that priest, is not this or not that, because you, by the very fact that they gave you this crazy look because you're on holiday and you want to make sure you offer this holy sacrifice every day, they don't.
Yeah.
I remember so well a Dominican priest, and he said, "Oh yeah, when he goes on his vacation, he's got his Hawaiian shirts. That's what he wears during vacation. No habit, nothing like why." And I knew I could read into it. Why? Because you're not only on vacation, you're on vacation from your whole life. So then I start to think, I wonder what else you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
That's the fruits of what we have.
Yeah,
not that I'm perfect, but that's what you were talking about. We are reaping the fruits of our own behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is something that, again, I've never been able to understand. The way that some contemporary religious think, especially regarding the habit. They can't wait to take it off. They can't wait to get hang it up and put something else on. And I think to myself, but what is your sense of vocation then? The beauty of the habit is, you don't have to worry about what to wear. You don't have to expend energy or waste time thinking about what you look like, etc. You can just throw it on and get on. And I remember the first time I met a nun not in a habit. I just couldn't understand it at all. And I didn't, but I wanted to. I wanted to say, "Are you really a nun?
That's right. Are
you just saying you're a nun?"
Yeah. And what for me, I mean, I go out. I very, very seldom see other religious out. We have lots of Franciscans in the city. This is the home of Blessed Solanus Casey, the wonderful Franciscan porter. There is, Detroit has a wonderful, beautiful Catholic history, which has been discarded now. But oh my goodness, when the difference I found, being Mexican, people may not realize that, but being a full-blood Mexican and being from Texas, all of my experience of the church is of the, we got our faith from the missionaries, from the, in fact, I was disappointed when I realized I was by myself as a guest, because I think there was another one you planned on, and I saw his name. I thought, oh, look at that. I know that name, Junipero. And there's, the statues of him that are being attacked here in the United States and destroyed. Last night I was looking, and somewhere they were someone desecrated a statue of Our Lady Guadalupe. I couldn't even watch it. I couldn't, but getting back to what I was saying, so all of my experiences of that type of Catholicism, then I come up here and, it's a French Catholicism, the old French Catholicism, if you can find it. It's still, but the roots are still here. And, it's amazing the difference, and I told Bishop Kelly, I shared with him that I used to have a recording of the wonderful Archbishop Lefebvre, may he rest in peace, chanting the litany in Latin, but with his beautiful French accent. And oh my goodness, it was just, I could listen to it over and over and over again. He just had a most wonderful voice. But all of that, all those things, there's such a thirst for, I have found. People, because why? it's not, people look at me, or if they talk to me and they'll come up, to me, and they realize, oh, you're a regular person. What are you doing? What is this all about? The habit. And, I explain to them what's going on. I'm talking about Catholics who call themselves Catholics. I've never seen it before. And they love it. They love it when they understand what it means. That it is being. I wear the white. There's a reason for that, but the general color of black. Like I explained the cassock to them, and I'll tell them. I said, did you know that there's a meaning to all of that? It's not just material. It's not just cloth. It's the collar, what it all means, and how every man, cleric, every woman religious should feel privileged every morning to be able to wear the garb of our calling. It's amazing because it means something. But like you said, I've seen, there's religious that the only reason they're wearing it, if they're wearing it, is because, it's prayer time. Other than that, it's off.
Yeah.
And I've been to places where it's not even though there's still scheduled prayer time, everybody's coming in and whatever they want to.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And yet it's interesting, isn't it? And yet all the traditionalist congregations of religious are all maxing out their building.
I know.
It's those Dominican nuns. I can't remember where they are.
Are you thinking of the Ann Arbor nuns?
Could be. They started. Originally there were only 4 of them, and now there are 130 odd, and they haven't got enough beds. in the convent. And over here, you'll have heard of Salem, the Benedictine French abbey, and subsequently Fongombo. Now Salem, they in the 60s, of course, they were always part of the new liturgical movement, and some of the monks said we want to stick with the old ways and traditions and the old liturgy. So they went to Fongombo. Now Fongombo was more or less a ruin. They sorted it out, and subsequently from Fongombo, they have periodically founded another monastery. So from Salem to Fongombo, from Fongombo to 5 other houses that each in their own turn have become an abbey. And that's just because the sheer number of vocations that they've attracted. And why? Because they're offering something different. They're offering they're offering a real commitment and a real sacrifice. When young people hear the message of the gospel, and they want to offer themselves to God's service, they're going to be attracted to a life that requires and demands a level of sacrifice that's immediately appreciable. Well, you can't wear whatever you want to wear. You have to wear this habit, and you can't eat whenever you want to eat. You will eat at these times, and you can't pray just whenever you want to pray, although that's good. But you have to pray at these times as a community, and young people are attracted to that sense of the traditional living of the faith, because everything has meaning, everything has purpose, and everything requires effort. It's whereas the sort of contemporary sort of progressive expression of the faith requires nothing of you, doesn't ask of you for anything, except the impossible. It accepts the impossible, because what they always say is, oh, well, it doesn't matter. It's all what's in your heart and in your head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're always saying it. It's what's in your heart and in your head. That's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
But as anybody knows, what's in your heart and in your head half the time is rubbish, and half the time is confusion.
Yeah.
So that so a young mind, heart and mind, attracted to the religious life, having come from the world, entering religious life, to be given a habit, and to be given, to be shown to a cell and said, right, there's your bed, there's your desk, and that nail on the back of the door is your wardrobe. That habit there, that's what you wear, and that's it. And if anything, that comes as a mercy for most people, because it's like, oh my goodness, it's so simple. I haven't got to think about, what I'm going to wear. I haven't got to think about what anybody else is going to wear, or what they think I ought to be wearing, or how I look, or how they look, blah, 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 blah. I just wear this, and we're all the same. And I don't have to, all that 10, 20, half an hour, I used to spend in the world, in my bedroom, on my own, with a wardrobe full of stuff most of the time I never wore. And that time that I wasted every morning debating with myself, oh, shall I wear this? Shall I wear that? Do I look good in this? Do I look good in that? How's my bum in this? Blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Yet you come to traditional religious life, well, you've saved 30 minutes of your day straight away. Mm-hmm. Because you just wear this. But because wearing this signifies to you and to the world, you're dying to self, and you're living for Christ.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's as you know, I still wear a tonsure,
Mm-hmm.
a little, an artificial bald patch.
Yeah.
And many people, say to me, oh, why do you do that? Or they say, nobody does that anymore. Why do you keep that? Why do you do that? Or whatever. Or you've got such lovely hair, why don't you do that? And I always say to them, well, because it reminds me of my vocation and who I am at all times and in all places.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the very fact that you've noticed is a reminder to me. But it also means I can't, it keeps me in check. It helps me to remember that my identity is with Christ crucified. My identity as a priest and as a bishop is with his high priesthood. My identity is, and my life is an offering in sacrifice of love for him and for God and for his people. And the fact that, I can't sneak into a nightclub, or I can't sneak into a, or whatever, because people notice. But it reminds me too, so it keeps me in check, And again, as you say about the habit, when you explain to people, when I explain to people what the tonsure is, they love it. They say, oh, that's amazing. Oh, wow, that's incredible. And they love it, and they're full of appreciation for it. It's yeah.
It is. I yesterday I had to go to the doctor, and one of the staff, it was the eye doctor, and my eyes are just something. I just have had problems, and so I look over and I can notice he's got a medal of some sort on. And usually when I see that, I'll point it out. I want to know, is it St. Jude or somebody? And we're wearing our masks and everything, and I say to him, I said, I know I see that medal. And he kept saying, oh, yes, and I said, what is the medal? He goes, no, it's gold, it's gold. and over 2 or 3 times I couldn't understand until I finally understood, because he's Muslim, and it wasn't a medal, because they won't do that. It was a imprint, you probably seen, of the letter that stands for Allah. Okay. And so I thought, oh, yes, that's right. And so his name's Hussein. And I said, oh, that's very nice. I said, are you a faithful Muslim? And he's, oh, well, I try to be, I'm trying. I said, oh, well, that's very nice. I said, I'm Christian. I said, I can say the same thing. I'm trying to be a faithful Christian. And so he starts to explain to me how he appreciates me noticing it. And, he thinks everybody's religion is okay, whatever you're following. And I stopped and I said, whoa, wait. I'm not saying that. So because I think that you would say the same thing. If it came down to choosing, I choose Christ, not Muhammad. I can understand your being raised this way. I said, but in the end, I'm going to say you're wrong. That doesn't mean that we can't be friends, but in the end, I do. You're going to say I'm wrong. There's a half a world out there that's on the eastern side that's going to say I'm wrong. Okay. My point is that while he and I both I appreciated what he was wearing. He was appreciative of what I was wearing. It cannot be that, oh, everybody's okay. You're okay, I'm okay, everybody's okay. And I know this tends to confuse people who don't understand what the real truth is. But what I try to explain to them, and I think this was what brings it to a head, what it means to wear this, what it means to hold the crucifix to me, is that because this is the truth. This is what God, the one true God, desires of us. And if you're a Muslim, my friend, I'm happy that you have some connection to God, but there's more. And same thing I'll say to someone on the street, there's more. And even I remember giving a retreat to the men several summers ago on the religious life. And that's the key. In the religious life, when you understand what it is, you never rest, because God's always going to say more. The moment that we are, okay, Lord, I get it. Oh, wonderful. Catharsis, revelation, all those things. He said, okay, now come on, more. And as long as, like what you said, and what I've realized over the years, when you choose our Lord, how easy everything else is. They simply have chosen the crucified one. That's it. And I think that's what it's about. That's what it ends up being about. And that's what people appreciate, mostly because they know they could never do it.
Now, interestingly, of course, what came out in the news today was this weekend, of course, is the festival of Eid for Muslims. And yesterday, apparently in the very same sports arena in Dublin, which played host to Pope Francis last year, there was an Eid celebration held there, at which the Archbishop, the Roman Catholic Archbishop attended, and the Anglican Archbishop attended, and the Rabbi, the Chief Rabbi for Ireland, attended. And of course, the interesting thing about that is the festival of Eid, particularly, is to commemorate the Ishmael and Isaac, the sons of Abraham. And it's actually to suggest that it was Ishmael who was the favored son, and not Isaac. That's what Eid celebrates.
Okay. Yeah.
So you've got the Roman Catholic, the Anglican archbishops, and the rabbi there, who clearly don't believe that.
Yes, at least you would think they don't believe it. Yeah.
Well, but the point is that they don't know enough about the Islamic faith to have recognised that actually, oh no, this is probably an invitation I shouldn't accept.
Yeah.
Not because I'm being awkward about it, but simply because I can't. What does it mean for me to go to attend this festival that actually betrays what I believe to be the truth about my own religion?
Mm-hmm. Now, in sort of that light, do you think Francis will accept the invitation to come and speak in the Hagia Sophia?
Well, I'm sure it wouldn't surprise me if he did.
Mhm.
And if he did, I'm sure he would give it a spin that this was brokering peace and an act of harmony and reconciliation in a sacred space.
Yes,
you can just imagine. You can just imagine what he'd say.
Yeah, because
as to whether
I
or
don't.
Not he should.
Yeah.
Sorry, as to whether or not he should. Well, I mean, of course he shouldn't. Of course he shouldn't. But this is somebody who kisses the Quran and believes that that there's no difference between the God Yahweh and the God Allah.
Mm-hmm.
Even though clearly, historically and theologically, there's a huge difference.
It's just they'll come after you if you unlike the Christians. Someone like here in the United States, I'm not going to stand up for the flag until the government stands up for Christians. I'm patriotic, but I want them to stand up for what they've always stood up for. But it's gone now. There's no way. So many of the things that have happened, even in the news here in the United States, politically, have gone anti-Christian. And we're seeing it. All over the world. I'm sure in the UK, you say the same thing.
You see, now I, over here, I'm quite involved with multi-faith aspects in our city here. But it's interesting that the Orthodox, conservative elements of the different faiths, we all basically have the same understanding. So we won't have interfaith services together, because we have enough respect for our own faith and for each other that we just don't go there. But we will meet together and we will discuss the various issues affecting society and affecting our communities. And wherever possible, we will collaborate and we will work together and we will find ways of partnering together to combat hate crime and to combat faith hate crime and so on and so forth. We'll do all that together. But we have enough respect for each other's faith and theology that we're not interested in blurring the lines. We just don't go there. And there's no reason why other hierarchs with a global standing couldn't do the same. There's no reason for all this blending and this kind of fusion of faith that we see, and because the irony is, of course, is that our Islamic friends, for example, they're never going to compromise on what they believe. They're never going to compromise on what they believe. They're never going to accept Jesus' birth. They're never going to accept the incarnation. They're never going to recognize Jesus as anything more than a prophet. So there's no point in Christians then seeking various sort of compromises theologically. Doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, no, it's true, and I think that it's along the line. I think you would agree. Many would agree. These are not the fruits of anything that's happened recently. We can go back. What we do go back to? What do we go back to? We're going to go back to 1800, and we can trace all of these things. This is the fruit of this. It's the fruit of. Who would have thought in less than 200 years I think the entirety of what was known for millennia has been discarded, and they don't want it back. There is no room for us in the church. That's what it makes no sense. They'll make room for some strange sect that, is maybe not even Christian. They'll say, oh, well, give them room, give them space. But for us, we simply say, look, we stick with what was always known and has been known until we can truly come together and maybe decide some of these issues. But we're not holding our breath when that's going to happen. So let's stick to what was known. Let's stick to what we know to be true in every sense, ordination, in all the liturgical sense. Okay, that makes sense to me. Rather than, well, let me give you something new. This is what you must believe. This is where you must go. And now the fruits of that, what? The generations that don't even know that the church was something else, something much more beautiful, something true and great, and that would withstand the time, no matter what time it was. But what happened? We're just, to me, that's what it is. We're just suffering from the fruit of all of that. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The age of the so-called Enlightenment.
That's right. Yeah.
Which, if anything, is working towards the contrary. And this is what we see today now in our universities. All this cancellation culture, this safe spacing, all this, no platforming, or we can't possibly listen to people that disagree with us. It's all crazy. And this is enlightenment? I don't think so.
And that's what for me, this is what you just expressed, and what the result is, what we see. This is demonic. This is the result of the pandemonium, the worldwide demonic influence. Of course, he's always been there, but that's why I believe this is something different. Something else is going on here, and we're seeing the fruits of all that. We're seeing to me, this is a telltale sign of the demonic. Just like if I was working on some case, and not everything can be assigned to the demonic. Someone comes in and says, "Oh, Father, I need this and this, and I need this help." Well, let me ask you some questions first. And what I find is what most find. 99% of the time, it's psychological. It's social. It's all those things.
Yeah.
Okay, because if it's really spiritual, and in this sense where there's the demonic influence, boy, it gets scary real fast. And what you're explaining, these great worldwide influences, it's scary because there's no going back. I don't see any going back. I've told some people here, I believe that Donald Trump is the last true American president. That whether he's reelected or not, because if we ever see someone from the other side elected in this country, that'll be the end. It'll be done. We'll be done here. I'm not sure what we'll turn into, but it's scary. And to me, that's the telltale sign of the demonic, whether it's on the individual level or whether it's global level. This is to me, this is the sign. And if we don't pay attention, it'll fester. And not that it's not festering, but what we're trying to do, what I believe, what our job is on the local level, is there's going to be no worldwide cure. The worldwide cure is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord. And what was taken from us to me, that was the whole trigger, if I want to use that word for me. The cure was taken from us by who? By the church at the top levels. And that's when I said, no, something's wrong. Something's wrong. And so you end up finding, like I found the old Romans, you find that remnant. And people are going to be looking here in Detroit and New York and in London and all over the world. They're going to be looking for the truth.
Yeah.
We'll be here in our little places and we'll say, where have you been?
Yeah.
We've been here. Welcome. Come in.
I mean, exactly. I mean, that's exactly what we as old Romans are. We are a faithful remnant. In 30 years' time, in 2053, we'll have been that faithful remnant for 200 years. And Deo Volente, God willing, we'll still be here. But looking at reviewing, the past 200 years or so, I really do believe that we're only here because God has preserved us to be here, and He has kept us here for this time. Absolutely.
I believe so as well. And whatever small role I have to play in that, I'm very happy to.
Excellent. Well, brother, it's been great chatting to you. I love chatting with you.
Yes, you as well.
It's great. It's always good talking to somebody that you're on the same wavelength with. Now, if anyone would like to help out with your endeavors there in Detroit, what's the best way for them to make contact?
Right now, it's really my email is the only way. I'm rebuilding our website, so that, God willing, that'll be up soon. And on that website, like we did in the past, there'll be places to donate and to find out more information and things like that. But in the meantime, certainly contacting anybody in the Old Roman community, but certainly by my email as well.
Cool. Super. Folks, that's our time is up for this week. Bless you all and thank you all for watching. There possibly won't be a show next. Oh no, there will be a show next Saturday. But the week after that, there won't be, as I will be in France. So the Assumption feast, I will be in France for. So apologies, there won't be a show for that. But there will be a show next week, all being well. Otherwise, Daily Mass, of course, will continue to be broadcast, and the Angelus. And Monday, of course, is our vocations program. So take care. God bless yourselves. And Brother Stanislaus, thank you once again.
Thank you. Yes. God bless you.
And we will hopefully all see each other, continue to see each other online. Stay well and keep healthy, folks. God bless you all.
The Old Roman is an online newsletter, bulletin, journal and magazine for traditional Old Romans, faithful Catholics to the perennial liturgy and customs of the Latin Rite and Orthodox Apostolic teaching. You can find past issues of the Old Roman in the top left corner of the page. And if English isn't your first language, you can use the translate button on the right. The title of each edition gives the Sunday date for publication, and if it's a saint's feast day, that'll be displayed too. Scrolling down, you'll find the content menu of the edition. The Old Roman View is the editorial comment, usually reflecting on the past week's news. Scrolling further, you'll find the Ordo for the week. This gives the feasts and the masses to be offered day by day. Next, the liturgical year explains the theme of the Sunday or seasonal liturgy, authored by the 19th century liturgical commentator, Dom Prosper Guéranger. Then follows the propers, that is the prayers and readings, for the Sunday's Mass. Bishop Challoner, an 18th century English bishop, provides a reflection on the Sunday or seasonal theme. This is followed by a Sunday sermon, written by a contemporary Old Roman contributor. Scrolling on further, the feast days for the week ahead are given explanation, with excerpts and videos on the lives of the saints or feast days. During the COVID pandemic, practical and pastoral guidance from the bishops is made available. Vox Populi, the comments of appreciation and observations of readers from around the globe. How to Worship Online is a video presentation on how to approach and appreciate the broadcast masses and other services regularly broadcast by Old Roman TV. Old Roman culture, presence histories, commentaries, news and information about contemporary Old Romans and their witness to the faith. You'll also find playlists to recently broadcast videos from Old Roman TV. Of your charity is the opportunity to pray for Old Romans around the world who are in need, illness, discerning vocations or recently passed to their heavenly reward. Then follows the directories, firstly of Mass centers around the world, their locations and contact details, and then for the Old Roman Clerical Directory, where you can check the names of Old Roman clergy. And finally, if you haven't already, be sure to go to the top of the page to subscribe. Ensure you don't miss an edition.